No, let's go for it.
Okay.
I'm just gonna. It's gonna be 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Go. Okay. All right. 3,
3,
2,
2,
1.
1. Go!
Welcome, folks, to Last Week I Learned. Today we are talking about the business of music with Val Prince, and that. I mean, that's your real name. I think that
It
was
is.
one of the. I mean, it's not your full name. That was one of the first things I noticed was you had a great name. I got sent your contact from our friend Joe Harder, and I was like, "Is that real?" And I couldn't really believe it. Yeah.
It's fairly unbelievable, and I've had to come up with various ways to explain it to people, and I think I've settled on the baby book thing is a good way to go, because people are like, "Is that your real name?" And I had like other stories, but yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, that's real. It's my name. I don't know why I have it, but."
Oh, so you don't know why
I
the
mean,
first name was chosen?
I think that was just pulled out of a baby book. I don't think
Really?
it's anything more than that, really. But
Because it's a pretty badass name. That's
Thank
a.
you.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a stage name, like ready to go. You know, and I
yeah.
feel obligated to use it as such.
Yeah. But I first heard of you on Prince Belrose, which was your old band.
Mm-hmm.
Love many of those songs. And got to know you through Joe Harder, where I went to the Oregon Extension with. And remind me, how did you meet Joe? Were you guys in the music scene? And we're in Virginia right now.
Yeah. I originally met Joe at Red Wing Roots Festival in Natural Chimneys outside of Harrisonburg in, I think it was 2018. And I had just formed a duo with my friend at the time, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
And his last name was Belrose. My last name is Prince, and we were not particularly creative, so we just put them together and
It's
got
a
that
pretty
name.
good name.
But it worked, you know. And then I met Joe, and we kind of hit it off musically right away, and he joined the band. But we did not include his name, which his last name is Harder. It doesn't have quite the same same ring to it. Although he was absolutely crucial to the creative aspect of that. And really, I mean, my creativity in general, I owe a lot to that guy. I steal a lot from him.
Did you do many covers? Was that part of your process? Or was it more like, I'm going to write this in the style of, you know?
Yeah, I mean, both. I think the latter is what I was referring to, really. But covers as well are extremely valuable because you put yourself inside the creative mind of someone else. That's incredibly valuable because it just gets you out of your own patterns.
Yeah, which is, what a weird thing, you know? And I think that's, you know, kind of the theme that we're talking about, the business of music is like, I think it's really weird to even try to make this a business. Like in some ways it's kind of unusual that we have, in that this is like a spontaneous cultural form that is ever evolving and chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
And then somehow we've taken kind of this industrial like production mindset to some degree.
Sure.
And
Hugely.
how did those live together? When did music become a business for you? When did you start to take it really seriously? And was there a tipping point for you?
So, well, I've been playing music for the majority of my life. I mean, I first started with guitar when I was 8.
Jesus.
So
Yeah.
I'm 29 now. And I've had various other interests float in and out, but that is one of the few constants that's been a through line, is some kind of, I think I had, for whatever reason, I had an immediate intuitive connection with music that was encouraged by my parents, but it wasn't like I was a prodigy. It was being sent to lessons. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
It was literally just, picked up a guitar and played a few notes, and my parents I could tell even then that they were like, oh, this is actually good. And I'm sure they're putting on a lot of encouragement, but I'm pretty sure they were surprised.
Yeah.
I think I took that and made that into a positive feedback loop. But yeah, I mean, I've had, to answer your question more directly, I've had many moments where I felt like, this is it. I'm really doing it now. Oh yeah, like, oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm hot shit now. I got this figured out. And of course, this is just the fallibility of a young person growing.
Yeah.
You always think you're done. You never are. And I think you probably never are done in your whole life, but that's a bigger answer. But the most recent epitome of being professional and being like, I'm really doing this now, I would say is 2024, just last year. I really decided, okay, fuck it. I'm gonna put out a very produced album. I'm really going to take myself seriously. I'm going to spend all this money on
Yeah.
merchandise and promotion and stuff and really try and tour and get a band together and all this stuff. So, that's very new. That's very recently. So it's hard to answer that directly because I feel like I've been taking it seriously and I've wanted a career in music my whole life.
Yeah.
I guess the big change is I've just started throwing money at it this past
Yeah.
year. So it appears maybe that I'm like, oh, who's this new guy in the scene? But it's like, I just put money into it. That's really all that's changed. And I've had some more confidence. I really am like, oh, okay, I can do this.
One of the things I'm curious about is, as I kind of talked about this tension between the production, the industrialized kind of piece of it, and this creative side, is how have you picked up on, I was actually talking to Joe looking at some of his advertising, and how he's advertising his work. And how do you feel like you've picked that up? I think that's something I plan to talk about with you, is the difference between being independent and being with a label. And I think part of the difference is you do everything. You are, I assume, building out your own digital media. You are deciding how to advertise this and get this out.
Right.
How have you learned that? Where have you picked that stuff up from?
Well, I'm glad that it seems like I've learned and I'm not in the process of learning. I would say it's a constant kind of touch and go and self-assessing, put something out and then say, did people respond to this? Do I like the way this looked and felt? If there's money involved, how expensive was this?
Yeah.
Did this meet what I was hoping that it would do for how much money I spent? So it's kind of just trial and error.
Yeah.
But it's also, I'm a person in their 20s, so I'm pretty grew up with technology. I'm pretty familiar with social media and how to make people laugh. I mean, that's kind of my style of personal promotion is somewhere between comedy, like absurd comedy, and kind of a tongue-in-cheek cynicism. Those things mix. So I have kind of a brand. I mean, it feels silly to say, and it's kind of an extension of who I am.
Yeah.
But it's just dramatized, and I've cherry-picked certain characteristics that I kind of want to portray, and that's just been trial and error, and I mean, just a lot of posting of myself.
I've been wondering,
it's just I was doing that anyway. When I was traveling a lot as a late teen and stuff, and early 20s, I was posting stuff for the relatives and friends and everything. So I think I was kind of already developing that public-facing voice in that way.
Yeah.
At that time, I really haven't given it this much critical thought until just now. I really just do what I would do, I guess.
Yeah. And then so have you done mostly organic stuff? Have you then paid for advertising? Like what?
Yeah. I mean, last year was, like I was saying, pretty much the first year that I've spent any significant amount of money on advertising. And in the grand scheme of things, it probably wasn't anywhere near enough to do anything. Mm-hmm. But there is an experience gained from, you have some kind of thing you want to put out, and then you say, okay, I'm going to spend money to now put this in front of people. I think that is something you have to learn do's and don'ts of as well, that I'm still figuring out. So hopefully by the time some wealthy investor says, hey, kid, I like your sound. Here's $1 million. Spend it wisely. I'll know where and exactly how to spend that money to make myself famous and take over the world.
Did both of those.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a real 1-2 punch. One thing I've really loved about your work is, frankly, the album art. I mean, I think Solo Val is some of my favorite album art.
I agree. I'm super lucky.
Did you do it?
I did not do it.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I'm not much of a visual artist, but I think this is one of my smarter moves, I would say, is I hire people that are really good at visual art and just, put them make them face the public, because it's not just, music in general. There are many aspects to it. Obviously, the music is the most important part, or hopefully, but there's all the visual aspects of it. So bringing in somebody who really can do that, it's like, it's a no-brainer. I'll pay my friend to James Dunmore, who I think you might know.
Yes.
Did the artwork for the 3 Solo Vals. Wow. And I've given him like loose prompts, but the first one was a direct parody of a Thelonious Monk album called Solo Monk. which he did an awesome job on, and then we just kind of went from there. But yeah, I just, if I have the money and the energy, I'll just outsource any aspect of the public facing stuff that I can, because they're going to do it better than me. And having multiple voices involved in any project is, I think, just more interesting. Generally. I mean, there's a few exceptions. There's like the whole Bon Iver, one man, or Tame Impala, all these artists that are just, their whole thing is that they did it all themselves. But, that's really hard to pull off and rare. So
it's super rare. I think even a pairing is super powerful, even if it's just one other person. We were talking off mic about Billie Eilish and Phineas and how incredibly talented they've been. And I worked with a good friend of mine on a project a few years ago that actually what started this podcast. And I've pretty much spent 2 years just trying to get back to where we were together.
Yeah,
because it's so much better.
And two heads are better than one. I mean, it really, there's something about, I think there's a base primal reaction to like watching other humans interact with each other. We're such a social species. I think that's why we like seeing bands play. We like, seeing people talk to each other. It's just the interaction. That's really what's interesting in life, is people interacting. So if you can include that in any way, I think you're probably better off.
I've not thought about that. I'll have to think about that more. When you look back at things you've tried, and what are things you do again and maybe double down on, and what are things in terms of the kind of business side of things that you would avoid that weren't worth it?
Are we talking strictly like business or art as well?
I think like the production of it, like anything outside of the creative act itself. So it could be how you promote it. It could be equipment upgrades and stuff like that. Yeah. What is like something you want to double down on? What is something you want to pull back on?
So the immediate thing that comes to mind is my self-titled album, which I released last year. I recorded all that with Danny Gibney as a producer and engineer, friend in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And that experience was so wonderful for me because this is another example of two heads are better than one, where I had a pretty strong vision and an idea for that package of songs. I wasn't convinced it was as good as it could be. I had all these songs pretty thoroughly demoed out, or most of them had really strong ideas. They were almost releasable even, but it was all just done in my crappy bedroom computer setup, and not in a charming way. It wasn't like, it was not helping. I think these songs needed a higher level of production. So I took these songs to Danny. We spent a week retracking a lot of the bass elements, the bones, drums and bass and rhythm guitars and stuff, on more high quality equipment with more of a clear vision, and having both of us play live and a drummer at the same time. So again, that kind of synergy between people.
Yep.
And then we used some of my pre-recorded stems to overlay. But anyway, so the big idea was realized very well, I think, because we worked together on it. We had a pretty clear goal. So all that to say, I would definitely, if I can afford it and make it work, have some kind of producer or engineer, another creative mind in the space to help me finish things. I don't have a lot of trouble starting ideas. I think this is pretty common with artists. Starting is the fun part, right? Like, oh shit, what's this riff? You're really pumped on it. You get it down, but getting a song to 70% done, like that's all fun. That's easy. It's all flowing. It really is the crossing the finish line that, at least for me, probably other artists, really is hard. Like that requires you to switch, kind of code switch in your brain to a more technical side, and you're also now critically thinking about what's there. So the creative side, the creative aspect is kind of diminished at that point.
Yep.
You're now trying to tie a bow on it. It's really fucking hard.
Yep.
And that, I feel like most of the mistakes I've made in my own productions have been during that time, because you lose sight of it. You're not excited. So having someone like Danny, who it's all new to him, Like he has
Oh,
that freshness. If he's there, it's like, wow, this he's only heard the song a couple times. I've heard it 50 times. So he can easily come in and say, oh yeah, this is done, which
yeah.
is huge. Cause like we were saying off mic, artists we can't stop. We'll
No.
beat something to death. So the final answer to your question is I would definitely use a producer again if I can.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting to as you talked about, that first 70% is actually really emotional too.
Yeah.
Like you're really connected to the emotion
Right.
of it. And then when you shift, it's a totally different mindset, and it can feel dead and lifeless, kind of like you said. It's just
For sure.
And I think it's helpful to be reminded sometimes that the music will impact someone else, because the message itself kind of dies on you at a certain point. But it still probably feels fresh to someone else.
That's yeah. I should
And to
keep
have
that in
confirmation of that. Do you have like, so in tech there's this concept of like a beta, right? So it's like, okay, I built a prototype or something.
Right.
And then you like release it to a small group of people. Do you do that with music? And what does that look like for you?
I do that. That's a great question and analogy. Basically, there are a few of my unlucky or lucky friends, depending. I'm not sure how they really feel. A few of my friends are subject to my ideas pretty much as soon as they are, bounced onto or exported onto my phone, and you can listen to it. And that's where I go listen to it way too much and ruin it. But
Yeah.
when it's first exciting, I'm like, holy shit, this is the greatest thing I've ever made. I have to text Joe. I have to text Spencer. I have to text Spencer too. All these people have to hear about it. And so that definitely is a part of the process. I think I have to be careful with, I don't want to unfairly give all these people all this power to.
Yeah.
That's not really on them they shouldn't feel responsible to respond in a certain way that makes me feel like I should pursue this idea.
Yeah.
But it's interesting at the very least, it's interesting to see what they say. People often point out things that I would not expect. This is universal when I make music, because I'm in one mind. I've made the whole thing. I've seen how the sausage is made. I know all the parts. I've made all the parts. So it's very valuable to hear what somebody will say. If they're going to give one piece of feedback, they might say, oh, wow. Like even that thing I showed you off mic, you said it sounded beachy.
Yep.
And I didn't hear that at all.
Yep.
But that's valuable feedback, right? Because this is the first time you're hearing it. If that's what you chose to say, it probably sounds beachy and I don't realize it,
Yeah. Well,
at some level.
Yeah. We listen to different things, like,
right.
And so my points of reference are different.
Right.
Yeah. Which is how I ended up there versus, where you were coming from.
But yeah, it's definitely valuable. I have to also be careful with not giving them too much power over it, because I think when you have a nice shiny new idea and you don't get the response you were hoping for, that can really hurt. But it's really an internal thing. It doesn't. Whoever's listening to it is not thinking about it anywhere near as intimately or as intensely as I am. So they might just say, my mom might say, "Nice one."
Yeah.
And
you're
I
like,
might
well,
say, "Oh shit,
fuck.
it's fucking horrible."
It's
nice. What? That's not what you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
Mom.
Yeah. You have like an expected reaction and what it means to you. And
I think that a lot of people can relate to that. We're all just fucking little babies making art.
But yeah, I mean, I think part of it is the connectiveness, the when someone hears it the way you do, it's so amazing.
It's true.
And that's the trick is when that doesn't happen, it's such a letdown.
Right.
Yeah.
But it really is, there's so many variables there, Ideally, you get the response that you were hoping for. But I guess another question there is why make art in the first place? Really? I mean, is it for me or is it for other people? I mean, this is a bigger debate. People have different opinions.
Yeah. There's Tim Urban who writes this blog called Wait But Why. Mm-hmm. His advice is like, write to a stadium of 1 million views, right? And he's like, don't bother picking out your audience. Like, you are your audience, and because of the internet, there's enough people who probably like it. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's compelling. That's probably what I've done.
It's interesting.
More than anything else. Do you land on one side of that or the other?
I think honestly, this is not the most flattering to myself, but I feel like I am kind of just starting to be able to make it for myself,
Oh, interesting.
or primarily shift towards myself. I think I've had a hard time um, being honest about what I want to make, and I'm still trying
Huh.
to figure that out. But like that thing I showed you off mic, the beachy thing.
Yeah.
Keep an ear out for beachy thing, beaching thing.
That's going to be the
Versions
title.
47 dot wave. Uh, I feel like I sat recently. I was listening to a lot more like bedroom R&B,
Yeah.
psychedelic rock stuff. That's kind of always been a lot of what I like very rhythmically driven, maybe made off a drum loop. Like with my ears, I can probably tell like, oh, this is some guy in his bedroom who's just
Yeah.
layering a ton of shit on top of itself, and it sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a long time I thought of that as some kind of lesser art, which didn't make sense because that's
Mm.
what I enjoyed. I would hear it and say, "This is amazing," and I would
Yeah.
try to make it, but I would go about it totally differently. So I'm 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 allowing myself to just make stuff that I want to hear, I guess.
What were you doing before? Like what did that?
I mean, I still was trying to please my own ears and chase
Yeah.
curiosity, but I think I've had a lot of hang-ups about like with shoulds, like what I should or shouldn't do, which is totally self-imposed and ridiculous. Stuff like, I don't know. I've had various silly ideas about music production. I mean, I've really come a really long way from. I was thinking about in 2018 or 19
Uh-huh.
with Prince Belrose, the first time I was ever in a studio.
Yeah.
Again, not that long ago, and we were recording a song, and Joe, of course, always a few steps ahead of me, suggested that I played the rhythm guitar part, and he suggested, "Oh, why don't you maybe do a double?" And a double is when you play the exact same thing as close as you can, and then that creates a thickening effect. It makes it feel. It still sounds like one part when you hear it
Mm-hmm.
back, but it feels fuller.
Yeah.
And I was adamantly opposed because I didn't have enough experience recording
Yeah.
to know that would. I didn't know what that would do. I had some kind of traditional value in my head. I was probably thinking about Wes Montgomery or some old jazz guitarist who just did everything live, one take, no overdubs. But that wasn't. We weren't making traditional jazz, so
Like yeah,
yeah,
why constrain yourself in that
yeah,
way?
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's something I've really had to and continue to have to face, these self-imposed restrictions. I really want to let go of all of them. Really, like if it sounds good, it is good, and just I need to like write that on a big poster and
Yeah.
just plaster it all over this room.
It's hard because sometimes you don't even know you have them.
Right.
Like you
I
talked
didn't.
about how
Yeah.
Joe pointed that out. Like would you have ever known that on your own?
It wasn't even until later that I realized he was right.
Yeah.
Um, it's weird stuff.
It is. It's very tricky to walk yourself out of a maze,
Right.
that you're kind of in.
It's like a pride thing as well. If you feel like you have some kind of conviction, you want to stick to it. And it's tricky because you want to be true to your vision.
Yeah.
You don't want to just take every suggestion everybody has. If I took every suggestion I got, I would just be the bizarre, like, freak monstrosity playing every cover in every genre that anybody wanted to hear,
Yeah.
which maybe that would be good.
Maybe
I'd
maybe
probably be famous and world dominating by now.
I'm trying to remember. There was an artist, and I'm blanking on who it was, but they like flew onto the scene. They were brand new, and they came with this really original, fresh sound. And then they got the record label involved, and then they had all these A&R people like, this is what's popular. You should make it sound like this, and
Yeah.
they ruined it.
Yep.
They ruined the sound.
There's an interesting phenomenon. I read this online somewhere. I'm not sure where I got it, but a lot of artists, their first release or earlier music is interesting. It's fresh.
Yeah.
They had constraints. They didn't have money.
Yep.
They were doing things with whatever they had, calling in favors. There was an urgency to it, and they were trying to prove themselves or something. And then a lot of artists who becomes, quote unquote successful, I'm doing scare quotes in the air,
Yeah.
will get money involved. You have a record label like you were talking about, and then everything changes. And now if you have all the tools at your disposal and people sitting around, plugging in cables for you and stuff, you're going to make different decisions. It may not be universally bad.
No,
But
yeah.
I could see an existence where if that happened to me, I would might make something less interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I haven't had quote unquote success, so I don't know.
Someone I had a lot of respect for is John Bellion. I don't know if you've heard.
I don't think I have.
He ghost wrote a bunch of big, huge hits, like Trumpets by Jason Derulo is ghost written by him.
Okay.
But he did all the self-production with a MIDI board basically in his basement and did it forever. And then his first real album, I think, is called The Human Condition. I'm getting mixed up. But it was so interesting. He did a behind the scenes of like him recording it. Yeah. And what I loved was he finally had resources. So he used to like have a loop of strings on a MIDI board and like mess with it. Uh-huh. And with money, then he just went and got a string quartet and brought them in live. And then, did everything live. Yeah. And it was beautiful. And it's really rare that someone gets to that level and stays, has integrity and commits to it.
That's definitely an example of it going well.
I mean,
right. Although I haven't listened, maybe it doesn't have the same kind of flavor. I'm sure it sounds totally different. I mean, yeah.
But the funny thing is, and kind of I think the scary part is, he actually got trapped in his deal and had to buy himself out and didn't release music for like almost a decade.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And I think this is common knowledge, but I'll just reiterate.
Yeah.
I think it's common knowledge anyway. We don't live in the 70s anymore. A quote unquote record deal, it's not making it the same way.
No.
I would even go so far as to say most of the record labels that are still pushing that kind of idea, I mean, they're businesses. They're probably just trying to keep turning a profit,
Yeah.
The product is the musician and the music. So it's in their best interest to keep money coming in so they have jobs. Yeah, I don't know. Not to be too cynical, but if I was offered a record deal, I would be extremely hesitant.
Yeah.
I would be extremely hesitant and really look over the paperwork. And I wouldn't be optimistic that it actually would do anything other than networking, really, just meeting a bunch of people that are involved and important and could introduce me to other people.
Yeah.
And I have friends who have been in that situation, like got picked up by a big name. Yeah. Everybody was celebrating. And then privately, one of them told me later, yeah, this really, it was cool and exciting, met a lot of people, but actually a lot of limitations were involved, and we got stuck, and we were counting down the days until we were done, which is, wow, that's a far cry from what we perceive as like, oh, wow, they made it,
Yeah. So I listen to a lot of rap, and one of the really well-known kind of business minds in that world is Nipsey Hussle, and he talked about being independent and the power of it, and he showed it. And E40 is another person who was from the Bay Area and did it all independent, and really was like one of the first people to show that you could do that effectively through merchandising, through touring, and kind of making the money in different ways. When you hear about independent artists, who comes to mind for you? Where have you learned from how to navigate that?
The first person that comes to mind, who's one of my biggest influences creatively, is Unknown Mortal Orchestra.
Yeah, they're incredible.
And it's I mean, the origin story, I don't know if you've heard, but it's kind of, I mean, they've got a great mythos, which is it's mostly the solo project of Ruben. And his brother is involved as well. But I think primarily it's him acting as a solo agent, solo performer and producer. But I think it was the track Funny Friends. I'm not sure. An early track he released on Bandcamp. Without, he may, I'm sorry, I should look this up, but he may have called himself Unknown Mortal Orchestra then, or some other name. But it was this big internet mystery. Somehow it caught on. And nerds on Reddit were saying, "Who the fuck is this guy? This is so good. Anyone know who this is?" And it became shared that way.
Wow.
And that was how he broke in, as at least as far as I'm aware.
Hmm.
But on the independence thing, he's pretty sure he was independent for a while, or may still be.
Yeah.
Not positive. But yeah, I mean, the industry side of things, it's important. Obviously, it's very important. It's really not as interesting. That's the problem. It's like the artists want to talk about the art, but you really have to have a balance of both, I think.
Yeah, and I think today more than ever, you have to wear both hats. I think so my dad was in radio and talks a lot about the limitations and the bad deals that artists would get into, because that was the only way you got play, is the radio or the records. Like that was the only form of distribution. And I feel like now it's almost overwhelming. Like you mentioned Bandcamp, there's SoundCloud, there's Spotify, you know, you can even try to be underground and do most of your distribution through touring and
tapes and CDs out of the back of your car or whatever.
What works for you? What distribution channels are you most interested in? And even TikTok's another one that's huge, you know, but they're also different. What distribution channels do you like and use?
Well, I mean, I don't think I'm not like, I don't have a lot of streams. I'm not like a huge success. Did you know, by the way? I'm not sure if you knew when we set this up. I'm no good. You just want to put that out there.
We need to re-record. We should set up like 5 years from now a re-recording.
Yeah.
I think it'd be hilarious to like play that clip, you know,
if I actually make it.
Whether or not you actually make it, I think it'd be funny. It's like a time capsule.
But to answer, I guess the most reach I think I have, which is extremely modest, is via Spotify.
Interesting. So that does do organic reach? Like, do people find you there?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say what organic means.
It's tricky.
Yeah. I mean, I even, if you have songs on Spotify, you have access to this app called Spotify for Artists, which just shows you your stats, where your stuff's being streamed, playlist that it was streamed from.
Oh, you can see that?
Yeah,
okay.
I'll show you that.
Yeah.
But, for a long time, like quite a while, my most streamed from location was Finland.
What?
Yeah. So, which I thought was hilarious, and it may be less hilarious in reality, because I think the reality may be that there's like a bot server based there
in Finland,
somewhere in Finland, which, full disclosure, I have never hired bots for streaming. To my knowledge,
such a fascinating.
Maybe I have accidentally through some PR thing, because you don't fucking know who you're.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought that was a funny bit, and I'll mention that at live shows, and people seem to be amused by that, So, but on an upcoming album, I have a song I called Finland.
Oh, dude, that's fascinating. You see like what happens to that song.
It was that, and I also, like we're talking about stealing from other artists.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just go on YouTube or Spotify and play my guitar along with other songs, just to kind of hone my chops or like get ideas. And there was a band, unfortunately I can't remember the name. It was some monosyllabic, like jam-y kind of Krungbin type band. Yeah. From Scandinavia. Yeah. I don't think they're Finnish, but I liked whatever I was playing along to them, and I said, you know what? I'll just try to make something in this vein. And I made this riff-based song that turns out people like when I play live, and that's when I called it Finland. Yeah. So it's kind of got the Scandinavian origin plus the bot farm story. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
So this kind of leads me, something I've been kind of had in the back of my head is a lot of, I feel like my creative thought has gone into how to pick what to make, what to finish. So my friend and I, this was like our big deal, was we created a company that would create companies. And we're trying to generate, evaluate, and execute on startup ideas, because you have more ideas than you have time to do. And I think, we focused on it when it came to companies, but I think it's really relevant throughout. And so I'm curious at a couple stages. One, I want to start with, how do you get song ideas? Do you put them somewhere? Are these in voice memos? So let's start with that generate step. Where do you, as best as you can, understand where ideas come from? Obviously, it's like nobody really knows. But
yeah, there's some kind of magical element somehow. And I think, and I promise this is an answer. I'm not just starting with a total non sequitur here. But I think the ancient Greeks had this idea of creation through the word genie, right? Which I'm probably totally fucking this up. But to my understanding, they thought that interesting ideas or art or anything creative was originating outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And that effective artists would just be good at opening themselves up to the spirit or whatever flowing through you.
Yeah.
Which is, I think is very, that's what I'm thinking of. The Muses.
Yes.
It's a well-known idea.
Yep.
That I'm just conflating with genies for some reason.
I think there's
something there.
Idea.
There's some connection there. But I think it's a fascinating idea, and it really doesn't matter whether or not it's true or if you believe it fully. But because if you look at creation that way, I found it to be very useful for, like I was saying before, decoupling from your priors.
Exactly.
If you externalize creation in some way, it's just easier to make things.
Yep.
So.
Oh yeah.
So for me, if a lot of times something that happens is. I'll write, ideas will come through when I don't care, that I'm not trying to.
There's no stakes.
Exactly.
Yeah, the judgment part is turned off, kind of.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So it'll be, when if the first time I pick up my guitar in a day, it'll be the first thing I play without thinking, just some random noodly riff. If I have the presence of mind to stop there instead of continuing to noodle further, that first fresh idea will become a hook for a song. Not always, and there's many ways that I make, but that has been a surprisingly effective one.
It's just picking up the guitar and seeing what comes out and just cutting there.
Exactly, just commit to whatever that was.
Yeah.
Because it's so fragile. It's so easy to just destroy it as soon as it exists. It really feels like there's a clock ticking. Like as soon as you get this, whatever you play, and like I've been playing long enough that this is not to boast, but most things that I would just fart out could be made into a song if I only had the presence of mind to do that.
Yeah.
And I think this is a problem that instrumentalists that become really good, they have this problem where they immediately they start running and they blow past the first stop, which should be where they get off. Like, they just go and like this insanely complicated thing that entertains them and maybe other musicians, but they could have just played those first 4 or 5 notes and made something awesome, but they're bored by that. So I try to keep that in mind. So that's one way. I mean, I'll just write a hook and record a voice memo or maybe sing along to it. But I think I have 2 distinct, and I talked about this in another interview, and I think this idea remains true. For me, I have 2 distinct avenues of making a song. Yeah. One of them is like that, the more quote-unquote organic, just sitting there with an acoustic guitar or keyboard or whatever, letting it come that way. But producing something on a computer, I mean, it's a very different world. So if I'm doing something sitting at a computer at my workstation, often it'll start rhythmically. So I'll start with a drum loop or have my drum machine out, something that makes me feel a pulse. I feel like you have to begin with a pulse. And the end result of these 2 ways of writing, very, very different.
Yeah.
Very, very different. Because if you're starting with a rhythmic loop and filling it in, you just do very different things. I'm much less likely to write narrative songs that way.
Oh.
It'll be much more like melodic or rhythmically based. Whereas if I'm sitting there with a guitar, I'm much more likely to write a ballad, like an actual narrative thing. So,
can I ask a particular song that I really like? I don't know if you wrote it.
Sure.
That Orange Tree? It was Prince Belrose. Which one was that?
So I didn't start with that idea. That started with the vocalist had believe they were trying to just write a soulful song. It's been a while. I'm trying to remember exactly how that.
Yeah.
But they came to us with just, I think, a bass. I think that hook was maybe a less fleshed out bass line. and a chord progression. And then Joe and I kind of filled in the dynamics of the song. Even though the song is the same 4 chords throughout, we have a lot of dynamic range there.
There is. I mean, it's kind of like I said, I listened a lot to rap, and I love really loud music. Yeah. Like when I'm in my car. And Orange Tree is one of the few non-rap songs that I love to play full blast.
No shit. Well, I'm glad to hear it. That's cool.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to it in a long time. It's so interesting because what is new to other people to me is so old. And even the stuff that I'll release, by the time it's released, I've been listening to it for like a year.
Oh.
So it's a very strange
like a time delay.
Yeah, it's a significant time delay. It's weird. And my taste will shift in that amount of time to the extent where I'll release something and not even really like it that much. And then you're in this weird position where ideally people are saying that was good, and you're like, I don't know, I thought it kind of sucked.
So that's one of my I want to return to how you pick among ideas.
Yes,
but I want to take a quick detour here, which is that I think AI brings an interesting level of like speed potential to this, where I mean, even for example, for the podcast I produced, I used to sit in GarageBand and fucking cut out and you know, and Adobe put out a free tool that does as well as I do, and it takes 5 minutes, you know. And so just some of the stuff greases the wheels. Have you experienced that yet? Has that kind of gotten to you where things are easier? And do you think how do you think that'll change things, being able to put out music faster? Potentially.
It's really interesting. There are a lot of prongs I could answer, but
there's a lot to that.
I haven't used AI in any of my songwriting or production yet. I'm sure I will at some point.
Yeah, even just to clean things up. Yeah, I think that's an interesting
Actually, you know what?
case.
That's not true, because I use like a plugin called Isotope, or they make all these different plugins and tools. They make tools for, I think they're targeted at movie audio productions. So they'll do things, there'll be like a preset that you can slap on your lead vocal that reduces sibilance or like saliva noises from the mouth. So that I would think that's some kind of AI that it just analyzes your audio and pulls those out. So I have used that shit. But I don't know. I would like to, well... I'm thinking I'm going to go back and think about myself not doing a double track guitar part, even though I should have.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest and say I probably will use these tools sooner than later, like other AI tools, because if those are the tools available, maybe just make new art that uses that. You know.
How do you think, like, if you could make a song in half the time, what would that do?
I probably would make twice as many songs.
You think? you
probably?
You would? Yeah.
If there was a way that I could get that first interesting idea down, hit a button, and then have things filled in that I would do, I don't know. See, as soon as I start saying it, I feel all greased up. I'm
so
sleazy.
50-50 on it. Like, on the one hand, I would love the idea of hearing 5 different directions I could take.
Yeah.
And like, oh, I hadn't thought of that type of sound, you know. But I'm kind of old fashioned in the sense that I love craft, and I love the idea of knowing how something works end to end and having my fingerprints all over something.
I think by virtue of you being a human, or me being a human interacting with the thing, it's going to have humanity. And you could easily make a, is it called a straw man? Where music production in general now, and for a long time, like 20, 30 years, has been digitally altered. You know, you can edit things in incredible ways, and you've been able to do that for a long time. So you could say, well, that's just the AI of the 90s that people probably said the same shit, you know. Oh, we're going to lose all the humanity because we're not recording everything live in a room straight to tape. Yeah. Although that may be somewhat true. But the point is, like, new art, new kinds of music arose from that, which we value as a society, and I value as an individual, like loop-based music, like we were listening to Steve Lacy. Yeah. all that music, as far as I can tell, is made in a highly edited
that's
digital way.
Yeah.
And I like it a lot. So why resist these things? Technology is going to happen.
Yeah.
I stand by that. If you're a human on the front end of it, it's going to be human in some way.
I love looking at the kind of extreme edge cases. So one of the things I've started to see on Spotify is these AI albums.
Yeah.
Where like someone just now they're dead giveaway because it's like Snoop Dogg and Nate Dogg and and Biggie, and it's like half these people are dead. Like they did not come together to put out a new song with a wheezy little dog. You know, that's like the artist name. How would you feel though about serious attempts to make music fully synthetic? And how would you feel if you knew your songs were inputs to that?
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So I literally yesterday watched Rick Beato. He's like a boomer, famous YouTube talking head.
Yeah.
In the world of music, he did a video of him looking into some like AI music production stuff. It was really funny because he just went through and just used prompts and made weird songs. It feels bad. Like I think to completely let a computer take the reins, like just put in a little prompt or just click a button.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good. And the end result is artificial. But I think even if the end result were human sounding, that would be bad and that would be scary too.
That's what's wild.
It's really weird.
I don't know how I'd feel if I listened to a song that really connected with me emotionally and then I found out it was AI. I don't know how I would feel about that.
It really
but
is.
I haven't had that experience yet.
Well, I mean, there's many sci-fi movies about this, loving robots. I feel like it's the same kind of thing. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
I almost feel like ghostwriting is a little bit similar here in that it is hard for me. Like Dr. Dre, most of his stuff is ghostwritten, which is really interesting because like he's talking about a particular time and place.
Sure.
And that's weird to me to find that out. I mean, I think Drake uses ghostwriters too. And
a lot of people.
A lot of people do. And it's like, it's kind of a weird, it may seem authentic to their life, but they didn't write it. And there's a weird trend in China. Have you seen this where it's just an avatar and they like, and the working conditions are actually really bad, which is how this got on my radar is like, there will be people that dress up in a costume and like live stream a singing performance. Or even now it's like they'll have like a green screen behind them and like dance around and then they go back in and edit like an avatar on top of them later.
Yeah, like the Tupac one, right?
And
is
so
that what you're talking about?
Except this is like their artist. Like it's like,
that's their actual.
That's, Fun Bunny or something. But like in theory, you could just swap out the person who's like dancing around and it doesn't change and it could live forever,
Wow.
Which is actually, I haven't even thought about that. That's kind of weird of like a band that could live forever. We've always had like this idea of a musician is finite, Like I think about Willie Nelson, like what longevity. But if the band is just an avatar of like hot swappable parts, that
sounds pretty good.
That's
actually.
Kind of dystopian in a way, but
no, it would be great for the people that are making money behind it. Because it's ideal. You can just plug and play.
Would you do that? Would you ever have?
I would like to think no.
An avatar version of yourself. Because in theory, you could even like you could keep making music. You could freeze yourself in time, in terms of age.
True. I could probably upload all of my preferences and skills to a computer now, and then I don't know.
But it sounds terrible. That's where this someone said we expected AI to be great at the things computers are, and it's terrible at them.
Right.
Like it can't tell you what a stat is with any reliability. If you ask it who won the Super Bowl last year, it might tell you who won the soccer championship. Right. But it's what it's actually done is it's great at things that humans are. It's
kind of scary.
It's like more artistic than anything else.
I think people will. I think people will adapt to whatever is there, and tastes will change. I mean, society's tastes do change. Some people are, a vanishingly small amount of people are only listening to old analog music compared to most people. So I think that's okay. I think they can all exist. You can have music made by humans. You can have music made by computers. People will choose. I mean, you don't have to listen to the robot music if you don't want to.
That's wild that that's a thing.
Yeah.
Because like 2 years ago, I wouldn't have ever thought about an AI, like a robot generated song.
Yeah.
You know what does sound like one though is Crazy Frog. If someone had told me an AI came up with that, I would buy it.
Well, there's a lot of
Cotton
stuff
Eye Joe.
a lot of stuff already does. So I don't know. But also you asked me and I didn't answer if my music were to be input for that system. I think I would be upset with that. I might be somewhat flattered, but overall upset and annoyed.
Yeah. But I have another one I've been trailing and meaning to come back to, which is how do you evaluate which ideas to make an album or end up creating a song? Because that's, you talked about how easy that first 70% is.
Right.
And then it's just painstaking labor, to shape something. And you can't do that for every idea you have. I assume you have more ideas than you have time.
Yeah, and certainly more than I want to see, than I actually will see through. More. I think the best way to approach that is volume, just having a lot of ideas and then being able to, they're not all going to be the same level of quality at their base value, and then just being able to go through those and say, this one immediately feels good.
Do you have a process for going through those? Do you like look through your voice memos periodically, or?
What I've been doing, the 2 studio albums I've recorded with Danny Gibney, I have compiled. I've either written songs for an album, so they're all kind of similar flavors and genre-wise, and I'll put those all together, or I'll go through various demos I have, put them all in a folder, and kind of decide these would probably all go together, and there'll be like 15 or 20 of them. Yeah, too many for an album. Then I'll go this is what I've done at least these 2 albums. I'll go to a different setting, which I think is crucial, with a different person involved, and then go through them and see what feels good, what excites the producer or other musicians I'm with. I mean, that's part of it too. I try to not be too precious about any one song. Yeah. Because when I've always been unhappy with the result. One of the songs, there's a song Muse on that more pop album I did, the self-titled one. Yeah. That one's interesting because I think out of all those songs, that was the least fleshed out of an idea. I had a demo that was just a fast drum loop that was faster than anything I would probably play normally. Yeah. It was just like a sampled loop. And the basic chord progression and like some ooze. Yeah. And it was basically nothing. And I was like, this might be something. And we listened to it and we were like, let's just try to play it. So we played it. And then in playing it it was me, Joe, and Danny playing it live, guitar, bass, and drums. It sounded awesome. It was very interesting. So I think, not being too attached to it, because if I had said, okay, this song's really important to me. Yeah. I really have all these strong feelings about it. People might tense up. I would certainly have a higher expectation, and then it becomes a negative feedback loop instead of a positive one. Yeah, you can't play with it. Right. Like you don't play with the fine china, Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I have a kind of a thesis, which is I think in my head, the role of live music is similar to the role of prototyping in like the startup world, in that that's where you go and test things out. That's where you get the feedback. Is that the case for you? I know it's probably different for different people, but how often do you have a demo, go play it live, and then decide if you want to develop it based on that? I say it strongly depends. That I think is less true of my solo music because I'm spending more time just recording stuff directly. Yeah. But bands I've been in, that's been extremely true. Yeah. But the tricky thing is, what I've learned is that if you take ideas to an audience in a live setting and then base your decisions off of that, you're going to do certain things and you're not going to do other things. And that stuff may or may not translate to a recording. Oh, they're really different worlds. So, and the opposite of that would be if you have a very fleshed out loop-based song and you go try to play it live, it might just be really boring. It might be not interesting. You would need all these layers to make it work. So I've learned the hard way. Like I've beat myself up on both ends of that, trying to make that work. And you just have to be aware of the setting that you're in and playing to.
Yeah.
So I've really got like I've removed that idea from my head when I'm writing a song in a recording studio. I'm not thinking about would this work live?
Yeah.
Because anytime I have, it's been worse because I've been worried about that.
Yeah.
They're just different things.
That's interesting. I did not have those as kind of separate categories in my head. I think I was pulling from. I heard a while back that the Beatles, for like 2 or 3 years, just played live.
Right.
And
That's
it was
the
like
myth there. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
the lore.
And that, but it's interesting. As soon as you said they're different, it was like, oh yeah, clearly the vibe is totally different.
And well, recording has evolved so much from that time. Like a lot of in pop music in general, like all pop music is, I guarantee you, is not made that way.
Yeah.
It's not made with a band, or maybe not all. Most is not made trying in front of a crowd. It's made in a room like this in the studio we're in, where you're just layering interesting things and trying to make the recording feel feel good.
Yeah.
It really is different.
Which is weird because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of the money is in touring and playing live. So there's a weird tension there.
I think if you have a sufficient amount of money, then you can take any production, no matter how over the top it is, and you can find a live version that will work. Or
that's interesting.
If you have more people involved. For me, usually playing live in trios or quartets. I mean, I have had more people, which is really fun and does allow you to do different things. But most of the time, there's not money to pay these people, so it's just the skeleton crew.
Yeah.
So you really have to. I mean, what works live? Like distortion, fast rhythmic things work live. Sing-alongs, vocally driven stuff works live. So you just focus on those. And I have a wide enough catalog, I think, that I can kind of cherry pick here and there, but
yeah, it's always fun to see what y'all play when I go see you live. I have still some of your sets, like Joe would write it down.
Oh yeah.
And I just have them.
That's cool.
In my house.
How flattering.
Yeah. So I want to kind of now shift to the money side of things.
I don't have any.
Yeah.
Done.
Can you write it down? How do you, like, what makes money for you as an artist? What is you don't have, not numbers, but like in terms of rank ordering.
Yeah.
Where does it come from?
It's tough to answer because there's such an incredibly small amount of money coming in from music.
Yeah.
I would say, I guess probably merchandise sales would be the most.
Okay. That's what I imagined. Yeah.
It's really not anything.
Merch is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty decent at merchandising stuff. I have a business. I can talk about this too.
Yeah, that's
my day job.
Yeah.
Which is, I have a picture framing business that I got into through my father, and that is merchandising. Like that's decorating. That's selling products. So I have a pretty decent mind for how to make things look good and appealing, and how to get people to buy stuff. So I take that to my band merchandise, and the things I've learned through the picture framing business are having a lot of options, having a high volume of product will yield more sales.
Yeah.
If you go to if your merch table has 2 T-shirts, one small and one large, and they're each $100. This is like basic economics type shit.
Yeah.
But, bands I don't think they necessarily know. And I'm still learning too. I'm no expert, but me and Joe also does this. We'll bring like 100 shirts.
Yeah.
And then you're more likely, if you sell 2% of your shirts, you're going to at least sell a few shirts.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. It's really, I try not to get too hung up on how many shirts and CDs and stuff are selling, because it's not much, and it's really not about that ideally.
Yeah.
Like it feels good when people buy that stuff or wear the shirt, but it's just kind of a fun little diversion, I get my friends, talented artist friends, to do the art, and
Yeah.
Have fun with it. But yeah.
So I'm curious about what this is like I guess the corporate person in me coming out is the 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Like I'm curious is there any circumstance in which you would stop doing music? Like I think of an example of like if you had kids or something.
Yeah.
Like would that what does it look like kind of scenario planning this career for some different, if things go really well, if something unexpected happens, how do you plan for it?
I don't really plan that far out. I'm very I think I'm not very risk averse. I just try a lot of things and kind of I think I've gotten pretty decent at responding to the immediate feedback of my world.
Yeah.
But I have thought about, if I was to have a family, if I was to have some kind of measurable success.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really would probably just respond based off my whims in the moment. That's kind of how I live my life, and it has worked. Maybe I'm just lucky, but I don't really think that far out with that kind of stuff. I have loose goals, like it would be nice to, make all my money from streaming, but it's kind of like, it's really almost in the fantasy world. It doesn't feel like something I see worth chasing literally, The bottom line for me with music is I would always be playing it, I feel, my entire life. I don't see a world where I'm not playing it.
I've wondered that. Way. Yeah.
Because it's become so interwoven with me, the spirit of me and who I am. I can't see not doing it. But as far as career-wise, I'm just going to roll with whatever happens. I'm trying to keep my expectations low because most people do not succeed, capital S, with money in music. And that's okay. I don't want to let that stop me from making music I enjoy and sharing with my friends and having fun at shows,
Yeah. I remember someone, I try to keep this in mind. I don't think I live it very well, but they talk about enjoy the worst case scenario, Like if the worst case scenario is you're never bigger than you are now,
right?
Do you love it? Is it still fun?
And that's a great way of looking at that.
Yeah. It's tricky, I think, to pull off.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if I were to answer that directly, I would say, I feel like I will. Okay, I'm pretty sure I can say I'll look back on this time, and enjoy the memories of it, and feel like it was important. And I'll probably sugarcoat the experience retrospectively.
Yep.
Because that's what we do. But I'm open about. I'm creatively frustrated a lot.
Yeah.
Things rarely come out the way I would like.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm not gonna fake it. It's hard. It's frustrating. I feel like I fail most of the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff I've made, I don't like.
What a great pitch for creative. I think it's a lot of type 2 fun. Have you heard of the type 1 is like, I don't know, for me playing basketball is type 1 fun. It's like, fuck yeah, this is great.
Right.
But a lot of creative work is type 2 where you're like, this fucking blows. And then afterwards you're like, oh, it's so great.
I mean, the perfect parallel is I used to be into endurance long distance cycling, and type 2 fun, the term is thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
When you're out there suffering and you've been riding for days and days and you just don't feel like it maybe in that moment, but you're stuck in that situation. And, some would say, yes, type 2 fun.
Yeah.
But it is. It's the same. I look back on all these, I've done these like extensive bike tours that were a huge part of my life and building character and who I am. And logically, I know that I was not having fun a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not good. Like rationally, I know that.
Yeah.
I can hear myself saying this sucks. I can hear my internal monologue saying, I really wish I was back at home, whatever.
Yep.
But I look back on it and I see the value of it. And I have almost entirely positive feelings from those experiences now.
And you would do it again, I'm sure. in the sense of at that time, not necessarily now.
I probably wouldn't go back and do
having
it
done
a
it
second time, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I have no regrets at all. I'm so happy that I did do those things.
Yeah. There's another kind of direction I want to explore, which is how do you see other people surviving as musicians, and what do you see that you want to copy? What do you see that you think people should do differently? Because I think part of the reason I ask this is you are unique in that you run a business, and then you do that allows you to do music. You know,
I think it looks bleak, I think, for musicians and artists. I mean, music especially, people have been complaining for a long time about the bygone days of, you go, I used to have a fucking gig down at the pub and we each get $500 a head and, a 6-pack of beer, and those days are over. It's like, yeah, those days are over.
Yeah.
Whatever. Fucking move on. Like things change.
Yeah.
I would say if people want success in music, I mean, what the hell do I know? I've just told you I'm not successful like 10 times, but
well, but you've been doing it a while, and I think
True.
that's one measure of success is like how long can you last?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even last, The
key for me is like you alluded to. I mean, money is a big factor.
Yeah.
We can't pretend that it doesn't exist and rule our lives. I mean, you have to have money to do things.
Yeah.
Including go be in a band. Like, that requires money. So for me, I think I've gotten lucky, and I'm in a very unique situation where I have this picture framing business that I have kind of reworked to suit my lifestyle. So I've set it up as much as I can, and it's still an ongoing process, to be passive income, which is hard. I still am not quite there. Like, I still work a bunch.
Yep.
But I don't do things like, I don't have a storefront that I have to go sit in.
Yeah.
Because that would clash with what I'm trying to. I wouldn't be able to go tour. I have to go man the shop, and I don't do a lot of service, like custom jobs for people, because I see that as a limiting factor in time. I do some, but I mostly just find places where I can set up my product and let that place sell the stuff for me and take a cut. So anyway, I've been doing that. I feel like it's an extremely unique way to make a living.
Yeah.
And I would never have thought of it on my own. I definitely owe it to my father and his harebrained, crazy ideas. I mean, this basically was one of his ideas.
Yeah.
He always said, he was a picture framer as well, and he would sell prints at an antique mall somewhere.
Yeah.
And he would, get the check, and it would be pretty decent. And he would say, man, if only you had like 5 or 10 of these, you could probably make a living. Oh, well. And he was like, throw it to the side and go about his other shit. And all I did was like, that sounds like it could work. Let me just try that. And I did it, and it's working.
It almost, in a way, it reminds me a little bit. Have you seen Arrested Development?
Yeah.
It's like there's money in the banana.
Yeah, the banana stand. Right.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like that, where it's,
right.
It was almost like a throwaway of his.
Yeah. But to bring back to your question, it's hard for me to advise directly that people do what I'm doing, because I wouldn't know where to start if I didn't have someone to start me off.
Yeah.
But I think it would make sense for musicians to find some way to make a living that you don't hate.
Yeah.
That is flexible and allows you to pursue what you care about, which is your music. And I think taking the making money side out of the music makes it so much more enjoyable, and you'll make better music. You'll make better, more interesting decisions, more original decisions. A great example would be like, because I'm not worried about making money through music, I'm not in a cover band. I'm not playing background music at bars, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. That's cool, and I appreciate when those bands are there. There's some amazing musicians, but it would be hard to do that and write all original music and record it. Like, there's when you're not gonna have time for that.
Yep.
So I don't know. I hope this doesn't come off as like a place of huge privilege, because I am in this unique situation. I totally recognize.
Well, I think part of the reason I wanted to ask you about it is because I think it's unique and smart, and I think to some degree I made a similar choice with I wanted to write,
Right.
And I hated the fact that I had a 9-to-5 for the longest time, but I don't think I would have been as consistent as I am. Obviously, there's more I'd want to do, but I'm able to do it really sustainably because it's not my main thing,
For sure.
And I've been able to fall on my face and fuck up and,
Right.
and and it doesn't matter. It's
Right.
like, oh, okay, that didn't work, Now,
That's interesting.
I'm curious, you live in Richmond, Virginia. A lot of people move to New York or LA. Do you think living in Richmond has been part of your success in that, like, you have this low cost of living? Do you think it's limited you? How do you feel about that decision being based here?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've only been here 2.5 years.
Yep.
There's a super strong community here. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people recognize it's kind of crazy actually how many bands are based here, how much talent is also here. And I think a lot of people would say that about their small city. They just love their small town pride. But no, it really is.
Yeah.
There are a lot of heavy hitting, really good musicians here and producers. There's also a ton of studios here for such a small city.
Huh.
But you also asked if I thought about, moving to LA or New York.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's crossed my mind, but I don't think I'm enough on the track of wanting pop success that I would do that at this point.
Yeah.
I think if an opportunity came up,
Yeah.
I would consider taking it pretty seriously but I feel like that's very unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
Especially everything I've said, shit talking record labels and wanting to be independent.
Yeah.
And also it's not, there's so many old traditional ideas about the music industry that we hold on to, and I don't know why. Like, so great example would be, I think most people have this perception that you have to live in one of these two places to be discovered and to make it. I'm sure it's easier in some ways.
Yeah.
But it's also, we have the internet. I mean, people
Exactly.
When that trope was being formed, you move to New York and make it. There was no internet.
Yeah, what were you gonna do? Like mail a fucking demo to New York? Like, yeah, of course you did have to move. Like, you couldn't.
Yeah.
No one was gonna find you. Like we talked, the distribution was so much more limited. You know, you had 2 distribution channels. You had the radio and you had records in stores.
So it's a different world. Like, I think people are beholden to these ideas that are not as unilateral as they once were. So I feel like you could live in a smaller city. There might be a benefit, really, to being a big fish in a small pond. I mean, I feel like more people know who I am as an artist in Richmond in 2 years than would know me in New York in 5 years.
Yeah, forever. You might be only known in one neighborhood in New York,
And I don't know. Who knows? Not that it's not like I'm walking down the street and people are like, "Oh, hey, sign my dick."
Have you had that happen before? That's it.
I don't want to talk about it.
But yeah, no, I think there's an arbitrage to play with living in a smaller locale.
Yeah. And we see. It remains to be seen what happens. Maybe I'm making the wrong choice. Maybe I should be going to New York right now. But there are other benefits too, like you mentioned, cost of living. Yeah. It's hard to imagine that it is considered affordable here, because I feel like I'm paying a significant amount of my income for rent, but my friends in New York are paying a lot more. Yeah. A lot more. Plus, we're right now, I mean, the listener can't see this, but we're in this really nice studio space that I'm sharing with 2 of my friends here in Richmond. And it's pretty affordable for what it is. Yeah. Which you would not be getting this in New York or LA. No. So, plus my picture framing workshop is through that door next door, so I can have it all in one place. And it's, it's costing me money. It's tight at times, but I am able to make it work. So
there's a lot. I think when the pressure is lower, right, and part of that is the cost of living, you're able to do more like interesting kind of creative things. Sure. Because you can try more stuff. There's just more possibilities. I want to start to wrap up, and I want to ask you, I think one of the benefits of a label or the more traditional music publishing route is you have external pressure to get stuff out. Yeah. What drives your release schedule? How do you decide when to put out what and when something is done?
That's a great question.
You're your own boss kind of there.
Yeah. That's a great question. I sometimes wish I had like someone to nag me, a manager or something, an agent to be like, come on, when's the next record coming? Yeah. I think I'm lucky in that I'm pretty driven on my own anyway.
You've been pretty prolific. Yeah.
Thanks.
I think
I'll sell my secret slightly, which is that, I mean, the solo guitar albums that I do, the solo Val stuff, I mean, that's still work, but
Yeah.
it's relatively, like, I can sit there and within maybe a month of doing takes, I can have something that's releasable for what it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think I pretty much just depend on my own drive. I have friends releasing music, which I think helps to force me to
Get it
try
out.
to do that, And I have a very loose idea of I would like to do one studio album, something I don't consider the solo guitar stuff studio albums, like something produced and intentional, and every year is what I'm trying to do. So I did one in 2024. We have one recorded for 2025.
It's very exciting.
Hopefully it's still being mixed and whatnot, but I'm pretty sure it'll be done by then. So, and now I'm working on stuff like I was showing you off mic.
Yeah.
I think all of that more kind of R&B, rhythmically driven stuff will be the next album, 2026. So I guess what's also driving me is that I just enjoy doing it. It's so satisfying when
Oh my God.
I think recording especially, more so than playing live. I've played live a lot, and it has been great, but recording is something special. There's something deeply satisfying for me, something deeply artistic about it. There are many more variables than playing live. It feels a little more refined, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting. It's really engaging intellectually and emotionally. To make something and then you play it back and then you're in your car and you're like, holy shit,
Oh my God.
I made this?
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it right now, and I'm going to hate it in a month, but I like it right now,
Yeah.
It's addicting. I would say that's a big part of it. I'm addicted to making music.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because I think that solves a lot of problems. I think that's been one of the things in my own creative process that I've had to let go of is when I just don't do shit, there's probably a reason.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier to like shape energy you have than to create energy you don't.
Interesting.
I don't know if that resonates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of whatever's there, kind of forcing it into a channel rather than trying to create a spark out of nothing.
Like I have things that I think I should do.
Yeah.
That I'm like, this is important and I want to do X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm.
I almost never do those. Almost never. Now there's some things I wish I could be forced to do.
Right.
But so I think I want to wrap with a question that I think about a lot, which is how to divide my personal life and my creative life. Like, what do I write about? So I have a system. I was telling you off mic that sends me random things I've written, drafts every day. And one of them is about a past relationship. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I mean, I've written a lot about it. I've written thousands and thousands of words, and I'll probably never publish any of them. But it's hard to pick those lines. Do you have principles around what makes it into music versus what is just for you, and how much of your personal life like bleeds in?
It's tricky. It's definitely tricky, especially. Well, a lot of the music I like is romantic, and
I know.
And a lot of music is in general.
Yeah.
So many songs are about just trying to get laid in some way or another, or like, like, please have sex with me, or why won't you have sex with me,
or post lay, like this was lovely,
sex.
This was amazing, or now I'm
thinking about it. I don't know. When's the next time I'm gonna have sex? Why'd you have sex with him? It's really. I mean, to be honest,
that's
it's
kind
like
of a wild.
I
haven't thought that, but yeah.
So trying to. I guess my way of approaching that is I like all that music. I try to keep things somewhat opaque.
Yeah.
Like, even if something is based in reality or some experience I've had.
Yeah.
I'm pretty unlikely to use a specific name.
Yeah, that's
especially a real name.
Yep.
In a song, because even if I don't think I'm successful, like maybe one day that bothers somebody. I don't know.
Yeah.
I consider it, but it's tricky because the stuff that I'm feeling that's real is going to be the best art.
Yeah.
So I want to use that, and a lot of the best songs I think I've made, the most engaging emotionally are when I'm really upset about something.
Oh.
You know, all the emotions are close to the surface, and
yeah,
I don't know. So I don't have like a strict do and don't of that, but I try to be respectful and try to be somewhat opaque, like I was saying, because that's just if your lyrics are not very distinct, like lyrically, people will just think you're really interesting, poetic,
Yeah,
like, wow,
and they won't
I don't know
like
what
dig
that
too
means.
deep into like I wonder what the story is here.
Yeah, but that's a genre and style thing too. I'm not like it's not like I'm a country singer who writes extremely narrative focused tales.
That are clearly about someone. Yeah, it's really tricky.
Yeah.
Well, I feel it feels a natural lull.
Yeah.
Here, do you have anything you want to plug or any directions we missed that you want to take us down?
Well, I have my second studio album, Nexus, is coming out in 2025.
Yeah.
This year.
This
And that is more of it's kind of a departure from the previous studio album. It's a kind of a jazz trio instrumental, but approachable, not
like a super technical.
Yeah, I mean, like the players are all, I did have some really talented people come play. Yeah. So there's some like really amazing drum solos in there and stuff. So yeah, it's more jazzy. There's no vocals. It's much more organic. It's all played live in a room together. So not a whole lot of production.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about how it came out. So that's coming out. You can follow me on the internet, Chiseled Glutes on Instagram.
Is that really? That's great
really
one.
that's my handle, and it harkens back to the
biking days?
cycling days.
That's what I was. Yeah,
haven't changed it.
Yeah,
and everyone in my life, unanimously says, do not change it.
No,
which is hard because, especially at shows, when it comes time to plug yourself, and you're just like you're in a city, no one knows you, and you're like, yep, if you wanna follow me after the show, look me up. It's Chiseled Glutes, and everyone just kind of looks around like, what the fuck? What's wrong with this guy? This is weird.
It's such a non sequitur too. Yeah. It's not like it's part of your brand in any way, really, other than.
But maybe the absurdity is in some way. But
that's true.
But that's true. Go follow me. Chiseled_glutes. Annoyingly active on Instagram. I don't really use TikTok.
Yeah.
I probably should if I want to be going the world, but I don't know.
I know. It seems nice over there.
Yeah.
I refuse to get the app. So I open it on desktop mode on my phone.
Wow.
That's your cheat. If you don't want to be on TikTok, but you want to see the occasional TikTok, you heard it first here. I'm sure other people do that.
Yeah. It's worth it for the videos. It's worth it for watching like obese guys hurt themselves and stuff.
I saw a really good lifting one where someone was deadlifting and they ended up like doing a somersault. It was so heavy. They looked fine, so I felt good about it.
That's impressive.
But it made me nervous to deadlift. I'll tell you that.
Oh my God.
But okay, so album 2025,
album 2025,
Nexus.
Instagram, Chiseled Glutes. I have a mailing list, which I do not keep up with, but when I do, it's good.
Do you send us mail? I've always wanted
email.
I've thought about sending literal mail for my newsletter. It's just literally mailing people.
It's a lot of work, but people would appreciate it.
It would be super interesting. So if you end up doing that, let me know.
Maybe
I would love to. I'll pay the postage if you mail me something. Because also it feels great to get mailed things.
It just makes you feel so special, right? Getting a package. What else do I have to plug? I think that's pretty much it. Follow me, stream me, Spotify. Streams obviously matter so much to me.
I know.
I think I've made maybe I get a report every month or two, whatever. It's just like hilarious. It sends you a spreadsheet of each stream. Yeah, it gets its own like Excel line sheet. Line item, and you see it's like song was streamed this date, this place, and it's like literally 0.00001 cent or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard that's the range. Is it's like fractions of a cent.
Yeah. So I'll make like $10 or $20 every now and again.
Yeah, it's fun. I used to have that on Medium too, where it'd be like, I made a cent today.
Yeah. But at least people are listening, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's nice to feel that. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me.
Of course.
We'll have to do once you're ruler of the world.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I feel like the vibe will be a little bit different. I'll have to be pretty obsequious and groveling.
would.
We might have to do a video of me kind of like kneeling most of the video.
We could do that. And I also just, in this one, in post, I'm going to alter your voice to make it really high and like nasally. I'm going to lower my voice to make it more dominating and masculine.
Oh my God. Well, it's funny. We were talking off air about, I'm a little bit self-conscious about my voice. I think that would really be the nail in the coffin for me. If I heard myself.
Give up on podcasting.
I think that would be hilarious if it was so bad that I quit,
It's doable.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. I'm excited to hear it.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks, for joining us.
It's been real.
It's been real. I have no idea how long we've been doing this.
It's like 6-7 hours.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you, Val. We're shaking hands.
And kissing.
It's funny how, dude.
That was fun.
It was a blast.
That was so easy. I hope I recorded.
That's what Neil and I have literally gotten like an hour in before.